should have in front of the grand jury?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Alexander, you're prepared to take this? I guess I'm delivering it to the clerk. You'll maintain custody of it from here?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is for you. Can you take the certification or does it go with Madam Clerk? All right. Thank you all. Yes, you too. All right, you guys make way.
To the back, please.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff. Good luck the rest of the evening.
Appreciate it.
You bet. That's it? Was it all you hoped it would be?
Can you tell us what it says?
I did get a good look. So, you all need to leave? I mean that politely and nicely. You've had a long day, but these folks can't go until you all go. I know we had talked about leaving the equipment here. Don't leave the equipment here because you're not going to want to be here tomorrow. You're welcome to be here if you don't have a Rule 22 for what's going on tomorrow. Just good old trial stuff. Did you find anything good? We had a lot of time. I guess that's be a good decision. Do you mind taking, they can come and collect you. You just want to put them down.
You are watching a live feed from the courthouse in Fulton County, Georgia. That's Judge Robert McBurney on the bench, who just told all the reporters still in that room that, quote, "You need to leave." He said he meant it in a nice way. What's just happened here, and we'll get some expert advice on this in just a moment, but under Georgia state law, when a grand jury hands down an indictment, it goes immediately to the presiding judge who's been overseeing the work of that grand jury. In this case, that is Judge McBurney. The judge then has the option with what he is going to do with the indictment that has been handed up to him. In this case, he read it silently to himself. He seems to have flipped through it. All we could tell was that it was printed on letter-sized white paper and seemed to be about that thick and had a few different striations to it in terms of the way it was divided with binder clips. But he did not provide any information about what the charges are, about who the defendants are, or indeed about the content of the indictment. Now, what is going to happen from here on out? We know the basics under Georgia state law, but we don't know exactly how it will play out this evening. Again, this is live. This is the clerk you see holding those what we believe are the indictments that I just described in her left hand here. It's very unusual that this is happening after 9 p.m. This courthouse usually closes for regular business at 5 p.m. The grand jury that was considering this matter today is one that meets on Mondays and Tuesdays. That raised the prospect that this grand jury proceeding might continue through till tomorrow. But they have apparently pushed through and asked the grand jury to take their vote, which has resulted in the delivery of those, what we believe are indictments, to the judge. They were then effectively certified by the judge. I think that's the right way to describe it, and then given back to the clerk. So we'll be keeping our eyes on what's happening inside the courthouse. The reason I say we don't know exactly how this is going to play out is because we know that under Georgia state law, there's no question but that this indictment or these indictments will be unsealed. There won't, we expect, be a long delay between the process that we just saw and we, the public, being allowed to see that document. Now, I can't tell you exactly how long it's going to be. I also can't tell you if we're going to be getting it from the docket meaning that we'll have online access to it as an official court document, or whether we'll be receiving it in the form of a press release from the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. We have expected over the course of today, and again, expectations are never promises, but we have expected over the course of the day that if indeed an indictment was handed up, we would see something with Judge McBurney in the courtroom. We didn't know how much he would describe from that document. We expected sooner rather than later to get access to the text of that document, and we expected a news conference, effectively a press conference from the district attorney, from Fani Willis herself. You'll be with us tonight as we are all watching live to see if those things happen. Joining me now from outside the courthouse is our own Katie Phang, MSNBC legal contributor, host of the Katie Phang Show. She's also a former Florida state prosecutor. She's got extensive felony trial experience in state courts. Katie, can you first of all tell me if I just said anything wrong, and if you could add anything to our understanding in terms of what we've just witnessed?
Yeah, so to give you a real-time update, Rachel, right now, that unsealed indictment that was delivered to Judge McBurney has now been delivered to the clerk's office. At that point in time, copies are going to be provided. We're not sure exactly when. Obviously, if we get a copy, we'll provide it to you guys immediately. But there was a very important question, Rachel, that I want to bring to our viewers that was asked by Judge McBurney to the clerk as she was providing them, plural, the 10 indictments, as she was providing them to Judge McBurney. He asked her, quote, "Have you maintained custody of these documents up until now?" Thereby obviously indicating that if there was any concern that there had been any tampering, Rachel, with those documents in any way, that could obviously be an issue. But of course, the clerk said no. And we also would note, as people were walking in, people being from the clerk's office, there was actually a gentleman with a phone, and he was actually video recording this as they were walking in, thereby providing even more corroboration that nothing happened from when the jury, 4 persons, signed off on that on those true bills, and then got it to the clerk's office to be stamped in and then delivered to Judge McBurney.
So there are 10 indictments, is the reporting. We believe that the grand jury's work is done, that 10 is the total number of indictments, and they're not expected to keep working and continue voting on additional charges on any additional defendants?
That's correct. So our reporting from actually a photograph that was taken of the cover page is that it is 10 indictments, and the language is exact. It says that there were 0. So the number 10 was handwritten into a blank line in front of the word indictments. And then in terms of no true bills, meaning there was no votes to vote charges through, it said 0. So to reiterate, Rachel, it said 10 indictments were returned. There were zero true bills, meaning the evidence that was put forth by the District Attorney Fani Willis in the course of her investigation to the members of the grand jury, that they voted on the charges that were involved in that indictment. Now, let me be clear at this point in time. We do not know the names of the defendant or defendants, and we do not know the nature of the charges. That will come, obviously, when we get our hands on these indictments. But I think it's important that we've noted in the coverage that we've had so far, Rachel, this was an incredibly expedient process. We anticipated it being at least a 2-day process. We all thought that Tuesday was going to be the day when we got those indictments returned. And so the fact that we actually saw it done today could be a measure of the value or the quality of the evidence that was being presented by the DA in this case. When I dealt with grand juries in my career, Rachel, it really hinged on the presentation of the evidence, and ultimately the standard is probable cause. Was there probable cause met? Was it provided in the nature of the evidence to the members of the grand jury? And to just kind of reemphasize this point, it is a numbers issue in the state of Georgia. You have 23 grand jurors. 16 of those grand jurors must be present through the entirety of the presentment of evidence, but it only takes 12 of those 23 grand jurors to vote a charge through.
Katie, as a non-lawyer, let me just make sure that I understand what you mean by the no true bill part of what you just explained. So as you said, this is based on reporting that shows the cover page of what was brought into the judge and then delivered to the court's office. 10 indictments and then 0 in front of no true bill. Is the sort of plain English interpretation of that the prosecutors asked the grand jury to return 10 indictments. They said yes to all 10. There were no indictments that the prosecutors asked for that the grand jury refused.
That is the interpretation of what we saw on that cover page. There was no indication that there were, for example, the presentation of evidence to support 20 indictments and that only 10 were returned. Right now, it is 10 indictments, 0 no true bills, which means that these jurors sat through, and this is very interesting, right? A day, and not even an entire day, right, Rachel? It started this morning. There was a flurry of activity. We had witnesses running the gamut from former Georgia State Senator Jen Jordan and Bee Nguyen, who was a Georgia State rep who also ran against Brad Raffensperger for Georgia Secretary of State and lost. But then we also had a guy by the last name of Sterling. We had Brad Sterling who showed up today. I could be wrong on the first name, so don't hold me to gospel on that, Rachel. Sorry, Gabriel Sterling. You know, he appeared for hours, Rachel. It was a very long period of time. And then we actually had Jeff Duncan, the former lieutenant governor of Georgia, who was also in there for an extended period of time. So what's noteworthy is one particular witness by the name of George Cheedy, an independent journalist who stumbled upon a meeting of the fake electors who shooed him out of the room and said this is an education meeting, quote unquote. He was teed up. He was literally sitting next to Jeff Duncan waiting to testify, and after a period of time, the DA came up to him, or the DA's office came up to him and advised him his testimony wasn't needed. So, reading tea leaves, whatever evidence he was going to provide to the grand jury was deemed to not be necessary. So again, there's not a requisite or a minimal number of witnesses that are required to present evidence to a grand jury. In this instance, we don't even know the total number at the end of the day that appeared in front of this grand jury, but whatever it was enough per a probable cause standard for 10 indictments to be returned.
And Katie, I'm going to ask the control room now to put up on screen that photo that you've been describing in terms of the front page of this indictment. And see, it says at the top, certification that grand jury indictments returned in open court, July-August term 2023. I hereby certify that on August 14, 2023, after the indictments had been presented to the grand jury and the session had been adjourned for the day, said indictments were returned in open court as required by law. Present for said return were assistant district attorney, and then there's a name, deputy sheriff, and then there's a name, and deputy clerk of the Superior Court. On this date, there were 10 indictments presented to the court. Of those indictments, 0 were no billed by the grand jury.